Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a concept that is, well, both deeply revered and, let's be honest, kinda commercialized. Nibbāna. Is it a place, a feeling, or just nothingness? Let's cut through all that noise and get to what it really means.
You've probably heard the word nirvana slapped on everything from a state of pure bliss to a brand of bottled water, right? But its original Pali term, Nibbāna, is way more specific and profound. To really get it, we have to go straight to the source and see what the Buddha himself actually had to say about it.
So, if we go way back to the earliest Buddhist texts, Nibbāna is always presented as the ultimate goal. We're talking about a state of profound peace, the complete and total end of suffering. Now, the Buddha himself knew this was a tough concept for us to wrap our heads around, especially since our minds are basically wired to constantly chase pleasure and run from pain.
And here's the wild part. This confusion over what freedom really means, it isn't a new debate at all. Even 2,500 years ago, people had very different ideas. And these ancient views are surprisingly modern. They really reflect that timeless human search for happiness. The Buddha actually had to step in and clarify things, addressing the most popular and mistaken theories of his day.
In a text called the Brahmajala Sutta, the Buddha lays out 5 different views that were floating around on how to achieve Nibbāna, right here in this life. It's fascinating. They start with the pretty simple idea that pleasure equals freedom, and then they climb this ladder into really deep, blissful states of meditation, which are known as the jhanas.
Okay, so the first view is super straightforward. It basically claims that the highest freedom, the ultimate Nibbāna, is found by just fully indulging your 5 senses. The thinking goes, if you're at the absolute peak of sensual pleasure, you've made it. You're free. Sound familiar? But, not everyone was sold on that idea. Others argued that sensual pleasure was just too coarse, too unreliable. They believed the real Nibbāna was found in what's called the first jhana, this powerful state of bliss and intense focus you can get from quieting the mind in meditation. It's a higher, more refined pleasure for sure, but still a kind of pleasure. And from there, the debate just went deeper and deeper. Other schools of thought popped up saying, hey, even that first jhana isn't the final goal. They started pointing to even more subtle, more peaceful, and more profound states, the second, third, and fourth jhanas as the true realization of Nibbāna.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. If all these states, especially those incredibly deep meditative ones, feel so amazing and liberating, why did the Buddha say that all 5 of these views completely miss the point?
All right, this slide right here, this gets to the absolute core of the Buddha's critique. Just look. Whether you're talking about raw sensual pleasure or this sublime meditative bliss, all of these states have the same fundamental flaw. They're conditioned. They depend on causes, they're temporary, and ultimately, they're fabricated by the mind. They just don't last. And this leads us to the most crucial point, a concept called tanha. You can translate it as thirst or craving. The Buddha's massive insight was this: as long as there is even a tiny, subtle thirst for any kind of experience, a desire for any state, it doesn't matter how peaceful or blissful it is, you're still caught in the trap. True freedom, true Nibbāna, is what happens when that fundamental craving just stops.
So, if Nibbāna isn't about chasing some amazing state of pleasure, whether through our senses or through meditation, then what in the world is it? Well, the Buddha's answer wasn't another state to achieve. It was a path to walk, a whole way of living that gets at the very root of the problem.
And this is where he laid out the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, try not to think of this as just a list of rules to follow. It's more like a complete, holistic guide to living. It's this beautiful, practical framework that weaves together our ethical conduct in daily life, the mental discipline to train our own minds, and the deep, penetrating wisdom to see things exactly as they are without all the distortion.
And this quote just brilliantly illustrates the whole purpose of the path. That Pali word, saccikriya, it means for the realization of, or for the direct experiencing of. See the language there? The path isn't to gain Nibbāna, like it's some kind of prize. It's about removing all the inner junk, the obstacles, so that Nibbāna can be directly realized.
This whole idea gets even clearer, believe it or not, when we look at the very end of the Buddha's life. The ancient texts make this really important distinction between the goal of Nibbāna, which you achieve while you're alive, and the event of the Buddha's death.
So the term Nibbāna literally means to extinguish or to quench, like putting out a fire. What's being extinguished are the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion.
An enlightened person achieves this while they're still living and breathing. Then there's Nibbāna, or final Nibbāna. That's what happens at their death, when all the physical and mental bits that make up a person finally cease, with absolutely no fuel left to be reborn.
You can feel the power of this in his very last words. He didn't promise some heavenly realm or describe a final destination. He gave a final, urgent, and incredibly practical instruction. All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence. His focus, right to the very end, was on the path, not the prize.
So when you boil it all down, the crucial takeaway from the source texts is this. Nibbāna isn't a thing you get or a place you go. It is the profound peace and freedom that's revealed when all that frantic activity of craving and clinging is finally understood and just released. It's not about adding something new to yourself, but about letting go of the burdens you're already carrying. And that kind of leaves us with a question to ponder, doesn't it? What are you ready to release?